Well, my name is Jesse, and I was born in California, and I have two younger sisters. Most of my family are from Mexican or Hispanic descent. Um, Growing up in California during the 70s and 80s was difficult, and during that time, my mom was primarily the person raising my sisters and me at a young age. At some point in our lives, when I was 10 years old, um, when I was in California, there was a lot of gangs, and I remember walking to school, and it was difficult for me to go to school because I would get beat up every day, rejecting the gang members there. So she decided to protect my sisters and me. She wanted a different change, and she was struggling raising us down there, and she heard of an opportunity in Washington State, where she could look for potential jobs that would help her to get us ahead in life. So we decided to move up to Washington from California. Once we moved up to Washington State, it became difficult for her to find a place. She didn't have very much money. Language barrier was there. She couldn't speak very much English. And we ended up coming to Seattle, Washington, and staying, I remember, in a women's shelter in downtown Seattle in the International District. I remember when I was there, they only accepted women into that women's shelter. And I remember she tried working several odd jobs there to save money, to try and move over to Eastern Washington where the opportunities for work were. We didn't get to see my mom for several hours in the day. As she worked odd hours, we'd stay in that women's shelter, and it's when I first experienced that it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for her. She would explain to us she's trying to work hard so we can get ahead in life. She would encourage us to never give up, to see that if you fight hard enough, you would eventually get to a point where you want to. So she was a very good example for us, especially being a single mom that couldn't speak English. Well, it was even difficult for her. So it was great to see somebody there taking care of you, showing you what to have hope for, I guess, and if you put enough effort to it. She accomplished it. She saved enough money after almost a year here in Seattle, and with we moved over to Eastern Washington, and she started working in the orchards. And I remember in Eastern Washington, when she would get up early in the morning at 5 or 6 in the morning, she didn't want to leave us alone in the trailer we were living in. The trailer itself was very small, didn't have any light or plumbing, no windows in it. It was cold, but in the morning she would take us with her, and I remember that she would put us all in an apple bin in Eastern Washington, and we used to sleep there, my two sisters and us, before school started while she worked. And in Eastern Washington, you work in the orchards year-round doing different things, but this was just something that, now that I think about it, back then I was ashamed. I wouldn't tell my friends at schools. You're embarrassed about situations like this, but she would remind us at home that she was doing everything she could to get us ahead, and at the same time showing that she cared for us and wanted us to be safe and protected. And after growing up like that and seeing her struggle to get ahead in life, she accomplished it. Over the years, we saw her try harder and harder. She was able to finally get her own family business where we were all part of, working it together as an investment. And it helped my sisters and I eventually get into college and pursue higher educations. But to think back that I was embarrassed of all those times, not having a house, not having a place to call home, not having transportation, living in conditions that you just never thought yourself being in ever, no heat, no light, no plumbing, sometimes no food. And then you were ashamed of it, but it got us through life. She showed us, what, you're going to become somebody. You're going to do what I'm showing you. I'm showing you that if you have nothing, you will have something in the future if you just fight for it and try hard. And to this day I think about it. There's times where I couldn't remember things in my past. To this day I chose to either close them out or block them out, either because I was afraid, embarrassed, ashamed. And it's just something that happens to you that you never think you would be in a situation like that, and somehow your mind shuts down because you're so ashamed of it, or you don't want to share it with anybody or remember it. But now that I'm grown up and I see what I've become and what I've done, there's nothing to be ashamed after, as long as you keep those good teachings, those good ways of raising somebody, having faith, having trust, and seeing somebody doing it single-handed as a single parent, even if the language barrier wasn't there, even if she couldn't speak English, and she's a good example, a good role model for anybody, I would say, whether you're American or from any other country, or a woman or a man, a single parent, you go through it. You go through it in life when you least expect it, and that's how it is. You don't know what life's going to give you. It's just what you make out of it. And she showed me how you can get ahead in life with that, and no longer, can you be ashamed after something like that, because those struggles become your strength. You learn from them. You learn ways to survive and ways to get ahead. I think the key thing she taught us was never to give up inside. And I think that's what I remember the most. No matter what life throws at you, whether you have bad living conditions, no transportation, minimal money, no food, if the inside of you has that goal, that dream, that strength, or that hope that you're going to do something, and also to remind yourself that you're not the only one going through this in life. It doesn't matter if you're somebody who has, a huge house or a great corporate job, or somebody who, is an immigrant into this country and cannot speak the language. I've seen people in all classes at the same position I was. When I was in that women's shelter, there was women in there that at one point were corporate executives and never thought they would ever be in a situation like that, with children the same age as I was, but going through the same situation I was, And they didn't expect it. I didn't expect it. And to see my mom, who didn't have nothing, and to see this lady who had everything and ending up in the same place, it just shows, poverty or trials and tribulations doesn't have, it doesn't discriminate. It picks anybody. But there's hope for everybody, and that's what I've learned, You can't give up on yourself, and you have to understand that there's people out there that don't understand that will never understand that, but you can get out of it and you can get ahead. And I think that's very important for me. I share that with my kids now. No matter what you're going through, no matter how hard it gets, you're going to get through it. Just remind that and remind yourself, and it happens to everybody. Have the possibility or idea of how to get ahead in life. And even here in Washington, I choose to work for organizations that help the minority people, or people who are less privileged, or don't know what direction to go, or don't have any guidance or direction. And I choose those people because those are the people that I see myself with. I've been there, I've experienced it, I felt it. I can now share it. I can give hope. I can give, a direction to somebody and let them know, look, it doesn't matter what you're going through. It's how you can get out of it, and that's something I wish to share with everybody. And it's great to share it with people and work with people, because these are the people that are more alive inside than they know it, because they're already lost all the material things, and they're more prone or more willing to actually listen to how they can get out of it, because they have nothing else to lose. All you have now is just to gain, and that's just to gain yourself from the inside out. And that's an opportunity for me to actually share and give something and expect nothing in return, but at the same time see somebody get ahead in life. And then one day, and I've had that opportunity, they come back and they're like, you know what, you're right, I am ahead now, I got out of it, I have a car, I have a house. No matter what it is, you see the light, you see the hope, you see the life inside of them alive again. And sometimes I think, we help more on the outside of the U.S. when we could be helping here. Why can't we find more opportunities or better ways to help here? And it is a big dream, a big goal, and I like to be involved in it, and if sharing my personal experiences of how hard it was for me and blocking those out for several years in my life to using it now, by educating myself and leading into medical fields and how to counsel and encourage people. If all those things that I went through hurt me at one point and now they're helping people.
My name's Karina, and my mom, she became a single parent when I was about 4 years old, due to the fact that my father and her had a falling out from domestic violence. And so ever since then, she was on Social Security income because of her disability. She's deaf, so it was a struggle for her. Finding a job, she was self-conscious when I was younger, finding a job, because she thought that was a hindrance for her to work somewhere with a disability. And so we managed to survive, sometimes just barely though, just going to different apartments. Sometimes every year we were changing apartments. It seemed like for 7 years, probably every year was a different apartment, just because she had Social Security and she had something called Section 8. And so Section 8 allows you to go into apartments, you don't have to pay as much. But oftentimes, due to where she wanted to live, we were always in the Seattle area. And she loved the east side, so she always wanted to live in like Bellevue or Redmond or Kirkland. Places that were a little more expensive. So when we tried to apply to go into an apartment, oftentimes they would look at us and say, they'd need to think about it, or they would say, yeah, we'll put you on a 1-year contract, but after that contract was over, then they'd raise the rent, so then we'd have to leave. I think maybe it was having to do with the fact that Section 8, they didn't want that in their community. I'm not sure to this day, but kind of felt that way. But even throughout all that, she still wanted me to go to a private school, even though she could barely afford it. She'd always go and talk to the principal and work on getting a scholarship for me. Later on in high school, when I went to private school, I worked through school to help with the bill, but always wanting good things for me, always putting us in a better spot. There was a time where we were in shelters for a while because it was just hard. And that's hard when you go to a private school telling, you didn't want to tell kids because they were all a little more income means that they had. And so you didn't want to say, that you were living in a shelter. So it was a little bit hard. I was sometimes an outcast at school. But throughout it all, she really showed me how to persevere. And that's something that I take with me. I want to be sure that I persevere in whatever I do. She taught me how to make something out of nothing. Sometimes we had barely anything, like $5. It was choosing whether you wanted to have toilet paper or, if we needed to get food, and it's basic things you had to choose between. And throughout growing up, especially when I got into middle school, going to a private school, they were sometimes having mission trips, and so I wanted to go on one and see what that was like and help other people that had less means. And so I've been to about 2 or 3 mission trips. The last mission trip I was on, I actually went and helped out the victims with Hurricane Katrina. I was in high school. And that was really, it showed me a lot as far as Hurricane Katrina, the victims there. We went to Mississippi, Waveland, Mississippi, and they had really nice colonial style homes that just all got wiped away in the hurricane. Very, very sad. You'd be driving down the road and you'd see someone sitting in what used to be their bathroom, and there'd just be a single toilet there. The rest of their house was gone. Just amazing things that the people down there had to go through as far as having a place to live. And we helped down gutting people's houses because it's so moldy. And the one thing, the material things didn't really matter. It was the photographs and the letters that they may have exchanged with their loved ones when they were younger. And I remember cleaning out someone's house, and I saw over 100 letters that had just been, they're molded and ruined, but all of them were addressed to his wife. And so all of them were ruined, and he'd never be able to read them again. So in the end, when something like that happens, something devastating where you don't have your home, in situations like that, you don't think about the material things. You think about things that you're going to lose as far as your memories. But that's something that you can take with you as well. And I know moving around with my mom, I could relate because we didn't have furniture, just because it was hard. You know, we knew we were going to move a lot, so we just didn't have furniture to move with us because we had a small car, and it just didn't make a lot of sense. So we slept on the floor for a greater part of my growing up. We always just slept on the carpet, which was fine. It was just normal to me. But I could definitely understand how, you know, when you're out in a shelter or out on the road or out, you know, wherever you are, sleeping in your car, you just can't take all those material possessions with you, and you take what you have as far as your memories, and you take that and you just grow. My mom, no matter how low it was, how down in the gutter she felt, she still managed to take care of me and persevere and find some place to live. You know, even if we were in a shelter, she still figured it out, whether it was going to churches asking for donations or doing returns in stores. She always found different ways, like ways you wouldn't think of. But it really, really, throughout the whole experience, just taught me to be humble. And when you see someone that's in a needy position, you know, help out in whatever way you can, because one day you never know, it could be you. And it had been me, and I understand things, you know, sometimes you go up to someone, you're walking up to someone down the street, and you find out that they were homeless, and all of a sudden they're wearing a business suit, and you just didn't picture it, that they know exactly what you're going through. And I think it's important to, you know, now that I know what it's like, and to help others and to tell others, even if they haven't gone through the experience, you know, you never know if they will. You know, one day they might, and I think it would be better in their heart if they helped needier individuals, whether it's helping in a meal kitchen or going down and helping the shelter some way, donating food, whatever they can, you know, because when they're in that position, they'll say, you know what, I was there, I did what I could when I had the money, and now I'm in this position, and I think it gives perspective. And but throughout it all, today I'm going to school and finishing my education and doing what my mom, she wasn't able to go to school, finish her school. She went to high school. So I'm going to college and finishing that and continuing to persevere. And I think anyone can get out of whatever situation they're in if they really want to. Probably they can if they can find the help that they need. But number one is people out there that are willing to help. So I think that's definitely important as well. But it is something that is a big thing, especially in the economy now. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and so I'm sure they're definitely between a rock and a hard place right now, and could definitely use the help, you know, in whatever way. So I think that this is a very good cause to kind of tell people, show people that it is it's a big problem now, you know, and it's not seen as much, you know. Some people just choose not to see, but if you go down to downtown Seattle or even parts of Renton, you know, you'll see people that are really down in the dumps and have nowhere to go. And
it's really more like, what's the word, like an epidemic. It's happening here at home, in my community, in my blocks, in my city, my family, my friends. I mean, if we can do it in the third world countries to provide supplies and fly them over and ship them in boats and build houses and build schools with donations, I don't see why we can't find a immediate solution here. Tents, you know, I see modular homes in Alaska, you know, being built in less than a month, and 200 to 400 people having a house in less than 2 weeks. I mean, it's possible with the technology and the capability we have now to build so many houses, and all these empty houses we have that we can't even rent or sell. Why not offer different programs?
her to the shelter, because once again, the shelters are not the same. They're not equal. Some have more supplies than others. So the last item that I sent with the family was blankets. And the blankets are handmade by a coworker's mother, actually. They're crocheted. They're absolutely beautiful. They fit up to a full-size bed. And she does them in rainbow colors. And so the mom came back and she goes, Jenny, my kids were so excited. For the first time, they had their own bed with their own blanket.
I think that another misconception is that homeless parents or homeless people, they really don't care. You know, they're so hardened or whatever, callous by all their experiences that they're just, you know, immune to positive comments or any kind of connection. And the truth is that they're just starving for it because they've lost everything else, you know. So I find that that is true also for children, you know, that when they come to school and they have their homework, even if it's a little wrinkle or maybe a little dirty because they don't have a table or whatever, you know, again, educating the staff that for that child, that is an amazing accomplishment. It's not that you expect less of them, but your expectations have to tailor to their reality. And the reality is something that we don't imagine in our worst nightmares. And that is what they live, and that's what they survive, and that's what they are come back to school and then later on to, you know, jobs from. So I think it's really important for us to realize that the difference between being homeless or not homeless is sometimes luck, sometimes, you know, it's a paycheck. It's a paycheck as a way for so many millions of Americans nowadays that it's something that really we need to understand.
I had a family that slept in their car for 3 months, a mother and her son. And when you met the mom, you would never, ever have guessed that they were a homeless family. She was a receptionist secretary. She was dressed to the nines every morning. Nobody knew that she got up at 5 in the morning, was sleeping in the Walmart parking lot, going into the bathroom to clean up to get to work. But she made it to work on time.
Sometimes it's really difficult because a lot of times one of the indicators is a child's behavior may change. Like typically I'll get a referral from a counselor because the teacher will have referred the child to the counselor because of behavior issues. And the counselor will, you know, maybe come to me and say, hey, have you worked with this family? And then I would in turn contact the family. But the problem is that, you know, we can't go to the teachers and say, oh, this child is homeless. That's why they're acting this way. Imagine what adults go through. You lose your home, you lose your stability. Well, I think people don't really consider the effect that it has on these kids.
I'm going to be singing a song called Homeward Bound. My name is Karina Kretschmer, and the lyricist who helped me is Jessie Tapia. Scared, afraid, hurt, betrayed, so much emotion and so much despair. Have you felt all alone with nowhere to go, and there's no one around to help you get home? It seems like it's one thing after another with no positive solutions. The world brings you so much misfortunes, and daily life brings its disappointments. If you've ever been angry at the trials in your life, and you feel all depressed because of all of your strife, then feel comfort within you at these words wrapped in love. The sun will shine on you, and soon you'll feel its warmth. The skies, they will be blue, so you don't have to. Just keep being strong, and happiness will come along. I know that times are tough and sorrow may still dwell in you, but hold your head above water and soon the waters will be calm. I'm sorry the road has been so rough on your way homeward bound. I'm sorry the world doesn't appreciate a diamond in the rough on your way homeward bound. But the sun will shine on you and soon you'll feel its warmth. The skies, they will be blue, so you don't have to. Just keep being strong, and happiness, it will come along. Just keep being strong, and happiness, it will come along. Just keep being strong, and happiness will come along. And